Welcome to All About Bees with Janice Mercieri at NOFA New Hampshire's 20th Annual Winter Conference. I'm Laura Angers, NOFA New Hampshire's Program Coordinator, and I will be hosting this session today with Steve Ford and Joan O'Connor, NOFA New Hampshire board members. First, please note that we're recording this session and all sessions throughout the conference, and we'll share the recordings with you at the end of the week. Everyone will be muted during the workshop, so type your questions into the chat box throughout the presentation, and we'll read your questions aloud when we get to the Q&A portion of the session. If you have any technical issues, please feel free to communicate publicly through the chat to everyone or message myself or NOFA-NH. That will also go to me. If you would like to access closed captioning, click on the CC icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Click the arrow on the CC icon and then click Show Subtitle. And if you're watching in a smaller screen, it might be 3 dots and say More at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then you would click Show Subtitle from there. Now, before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that this conference is taking place on the land of the Pennacook tribe, or Indakana, the Abenaki word for the traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. And we acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land and waterways and the Alnobak, or people who have stewarded this land through the generations. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Janice Mercieri of White Mountain Apiary.
Good morning. I want to thank all of NOFA and for asking me to participate in their conference. And I want to thank all of you this morning, this cold morning, to coming out or sitting at home at least and joining us. I am going to start by sharing my screen. There we go. There. This program is called All About Bees. I'm Janice, and my husband Joe and I own White Mountain Apiary and Bee Farm. We're located in Littleton and Whitefield, New Hampshire, so we are above the notch. I am a Cornell Master Beekeeper and New Hampshire's Beekeeper of the Year, so I love going out and speaking to different groups. One of my highest joys in the past few years has been learning from our bees. Bees have been very patient with me, and they are constantly teaching me something new. So I'm really excited to share this with you. It's a lot to cover in a short period of time, so I'll do my best to touch on subjects that are really important so that you can do more research and seek out more information to understand it better. Let's see, I want to talk about, there's a cliche from old beekeepers that you can ask 10 beekeepers the same question and get 12 different answers. And we kind of all chuckle about that, but it proves that no approach is bad. You have to do what is comfortable for you, what's within your time restraints and your space restraints. As long as we're stewarding the bees in a way that they can thrive and that you can help contribute to their health, it's all good. It'll be all good. Also, the bees don't read the same books or watch the same videos that we do. They are born with all of the information that they need for their short little life. And I stress that because in the height of the summer, bees only live 6 weeks. There is a constant rollover of new bees. Queen can lay up to 1,500 eggs a day. So they move along pretty quickly. In the fall, she lays a different type of bee, different metabolism. So that bee will live 4 to 6 months instead of 4 to 6 weeks. So this program is a mix of beekeepers' experiences, attended seminars, online references that have been shared by many beekeepers throughout the year. the science world classifies bees as a superorganism. So in a typical hive, there's going to be 50 to 60,000 bees. They have a complex way of communicating that accomplishes the task of growing and dividing. That is their purpose, to grow and to divide. They are highly organized and 100% of their energy all of the time to the well-being of the hive. They concentrate just on that. I kind of chuckle because most humans strive in their relationships. Well, it's going to be 50-50, meet me halfway. Well, the honeybees don't do that. They do 100% and 100%. So can you imagine if all of our world did that? Everybody gave 100%. It would totally change the dynamics of our world. We talk about the Abenaki Indians and our land here and how they cherish the earth, the water, the weather. Well, the bees utilize all of those elements, the water, the flower, the trees, the mineral, and they bring all of that back into the hive. They also forage on types of fungi to garner more antibacterial properties and bring that back to the hive. So when you have a hive, you are going to have 3 different kinds of bees in it. You're going to have a queen, a worker, and drones. There are approximately 300 drones in a hive, 1 queen, and the remaining bees are all workers, and they're all female. They do all the work. The main job of the queen is just to lay eggs. The main job of the drone is just to fertilize the queen so she can have that semen and be able to fertilize the eggs as she lays them. Although Jackie Freeman states in a book that she wrote that drones sing to the hatchlings when they come out of the comb. That explains their song to carry the past, the present, and the future wisdoms of the hive onto the bees. So they are like wisdom keepers. There hasn't been scientific proof for this, but I certainly believe it. Any remaining drones at the end of the season, we're talking in the fall, are thrown out of the hive or they're killed by the hive. They do not carry through the winter. So once they mate, they die. And if they haven't mated, they're tossed out on their laurels. So the superorganism doesn't have to carry them through the remaining part of our cold weather. The jobs that the foragers have, they take care of the brood, they take care of the queen. Once the brood hatches, they clean the hives, they're undertakers, they're guard bees, they fan the nectar that's brought in to reduce the percentage of water down to 18% so they can cap it. That's why honey doesn't go bad, because it doesn't have enough water in it for it to ferment. They fill the queen cells with royal jelly. Believe it or not, all worker bees get royal jelly for the first 3 days, so they have to produce that royal jelly for that job. They control the temperature of the hive by fanning, and they defend the nest from all sorts of predators. Bees die after they sting. Their stingers have a burr on them, almost like a fish hook, a little notch on it. So the stinger stays in you and gets pulled out of their bodies once they leave their prey. But totally the opposite of wasp and hornets that have a smooth stinger and can sting you multiple times. Their bee sense. They do all this in the organism by their bee sense. They use their pheromones. They react to each other either by the smoker or an alarm pheromone emitted when a bee stings another animal. That alarm pheromone smells like bananas, believe it or not. So from March to November, I don't eat bananas because I'm in the hives every day. They do it by touch. They have a sense of touch throughout their body, but particularly their antennae. They used this in the precise measurement to build their cells. They have great eyesight. They have 2 large eyes and 3 small eyes. And the 2 large eyes have thousands of lenses. And it basically, each one of those takes a picture, sends it back to their little bee brain, and it gives them this polarized vision. So they can really zone in on where they have to go. They do it by dance, their movement. They do a waggle dance and they do a figure 8. So depending on the direction of the figure 8 and the size of the figure 8, they can communicate how far somebody would have to go to get that nectar or to get that pollen. And the most unique thing that they have is an electrical magnetic field. A bee in flight carries a negative electrical charge. They carry that field. Pollen carries a positive charge. Now, we've always known that they go out and they collect pollen. Well, they're not directly collecting the pollen. They are attracting the pollen. It basically sticks to their hairy body, and they scrape it off and put it in their back legs, which have little baskets. So I'm sure all of you have seen bumblebees and honeybees that have those pollen pants on the back of them when they're flying. It's unique because they can sense, like a summer thunderstorm, an hour before we even know that it's coming in, because the magnetic fields, the charges in the air change. So that you'll see them flying back to the hive in a hurry, like landing patterns at an airport. And while this is a great defense mechanism for them, that type of weather can confuse a bee and create havoc on their navigation system. So they always hurry back to their hives when they find that that's in the air. There's 4,000 species of bees in the world. There's 189 in New Hampshire, and there's 34 that are specific to the North Country. And then you may have others that are specific to the shoreline. And you may have others that are specific to the river valleys. So it makes it unique that we have these types of bees in New Hampshire. There's a few more here. They have to visit 5 million flowers to produce a single pound of honey. So if we had to pay bees minimum wage, the cost of a 1 pound jar of honey, sorry, that's one of my dogs. The cost of a 1 pound jar of honey would be $182,000. So the amount of work that goes into it is incredible. One second. Thank you for being patient. So you're probably saying, okay, where do honeybees come from? Let's scroll this. There we go. They come from swarms, packages, and nucleus colonies. Like I said, their job is to grow and divide. Those are swarms. We like to preempt the swarms and do our own splits before they swarm. Packages, you can buy packages of bees. They are usually sent from either California or from the southern part of the United States. Or you can buy nucleus colonies. Those are not shipped. You usually buy those from a local beekeeper or supplier. When colonies do swarm, less than 5% of those feral hives survive. So they really, really need us. The benefits of bees. This is a quick list of some of the benefits. It is important for us to understand all of these benefits as farmers and as gardeners, because they can not only benefit us, but they can benefit our landscape and our production. Raw honey. Bees use it as a source of a carbohydrate. They have the distinction of being the only insect that produces food that's consumed by humans. Honey is natural and has a long list of health benefits due to its antibacterial properties. And it's the only food that never goes bad. Pollination. We're taught from a young age that bees carry pollen from plant to plant. And in fact, bees are responsible for pollinating nearly 85% of all of our food crops, as well as numerous crops for food that is fed to our livestock. So without the honeybee, our options for nourishment would be seriously lacking. And there has been research conducted that predicts environmental collapse would happen if the honeybee no longer existed. And here's the reason why. The reason why is if the honeybees are lost, and we do lose honeybees. In the United States, the average is up to 47% of our colonies are lost every year. But we have the distinction and the ability to grow new colonies. The part that concerns me is that if we are losing that percentage of bees, honeybees, what is the percentage of the native bees that we're losing? We are not propagating native bees. You can help the native bees, and we'll go through some of that after, but it's a real concern. So bees alone can pollinate up to 80% of all the flowering plants, including more than 130 fruits and vegetables, for those of you that are growing fruits and vegetables. You must know that your yield by having bees is going to be approximately 60% higher. So you need to take that into consideration when you're doing your planting and you have bees. This is a great way to be able to save some of your seed from year to year on specialty crops. There is a special mutual cooperation between farmers and beekeepers. The responsible use of pesticides, good beekeeping practices are key conditions to protect the pollinators and increase your profitability. New Hampshire Beekeepers Association is working this year to establish a new program that would assist farmers and beekeepers in connecting for pollination services. And I really think that this is so important. I personally keep my bees at 3 different farms. I don't move my bees. They stay there even through the winter. I think by the mass production of products and items like, I mean, we have tens of thousands of acres of almond groves. People move their bees into the almond groves and to help pollinate, they need them. They have to have the bees there to pollinate all of these almonds. The problem is that you have these tens of thousands of hives that are there. They're all interacting with each other. They're spreading disease to each other. They are only eating one product. So imagine if you only ate one thing for that long period of time. It's not healthy. They need the diverse food in order to become healthy, grow big and strong, and grow big, fat bodies. We want fat, healthy bees. And by this pollination, this commercial pollination type of service, which I know is necessary, it's not entirely healthy for our bees. When you buy packaged bees, guess where they're coming from? They are coming from those bees that have been out in the almond groves, then shipped down to Florida or New Mexico for the pecans, then shipped to Florida for the orange groves, then brought up to Maine for the blueberry barrens. And so those bees have been stressed by eating these types of diets individually. And then they take them all and dump them into packages, put new queens in them, and sell them to new beekeepers. It's not the healthiest type of system. So think about that if you're thinking of keeping bees, of what you want to get. Do you want to get a swarm, a split, a package, or a nuke? Pollen. Bees use pollen as a sense of protein. For years, herbalists have touted bee pollen as an exceptionally nutritious food. They've even claimed it a cure for certain health problems. But bee pollen does contain vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, lipids, and protein, lots of protein. It comes from the pollen that's collected on the bodies of bees, and it may also include some bee saliva. Beeswax. Bees use it to build their comb and store all of their things that they need in the hive, and as a home for new eggs laid by the queens. Besides the home use benefits of beeswax, such as candles, sealants, moisturizers, salves, beeswax contain non-allergenic properties that are healthy for humans. Propolis. Bees use it as their antifungal, antibacterial, antibiotic, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. They use it to seal up their hives for the winter. It's produced by bees, and it's composed of about 50% resins from poplar and cone-bearing trees, 30% waxes, 10% essentials, 5% pollen, and 5% of various organic compounds. And that can include mushrooms. When used by us, these same benefits can help us. Propolis will certainly boost your immune system. Royal jelly, that is that white liquid that you see the larva floating in the photo. So this gelatin substance is produced in the head glands of the nurse bees. They have to be of a certain age to be able to produce this royal jelly. So after 3 days, those larvae destined to become the workers receive no more royal jelly. Instead, their diet switches to bee bread, which is a mixture of pollen, nectar, and honey. But when royal jelly is used by humans, it's thought to fight diabetes, high cholesterol, PMS, and other health problems. And in fact, some doctors now are using royal jelly in post-COVID treatments. I know that we sell quite a bit of it for post-COVID patients. Bee venom. This has a powerful anti-inflammatory property, and it's the health benefit to your skin and your immune system. It can also improve certain medical conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis and chronic pain. And many cancer patients use it as a supplement for their pain treatment. So really quick, I want to, before I even get there, I want to go to some of the verbiage that I'm going to use in the rest of this presentation. Frames are wooden or plastic frames that have natural or a plastic wax on them to assist bees and beekeepers in keeping the comb in a form that's easily managed. Brood box, that is the deep box used to house the frames of bees, the eggs, larvae, and the capped brood. You must note that some beekeepers use all medium boxes so they don't have to lift any heavy boxes. A honey super is a medium or shallow box that's used to house frames of honey. Split or swarm, we've already talked about. That's their purpose is to grow and divide. So they're going to do it either way. So we would rather have a split than a swarm. Once you have bees, you have to know where to put them. You want to look for dry ground, good sunlight, in an area that'll receive morning or easterly sunlight so that hive warms up quicker. They will get out and forage earlier. You want to consider your work area. You want to consider your apiary protection. You also want to know if you have neighbors who use some pretty heavy pesticides. You want to check on any regulations in your area. I mean, I just found out yesterday that in Meredith, you need a variance to keep bees. And then if you're going to have an electric fence, you need to have a permit for that electric fence. So those kinds of things are important to know in advance. There's different types of hives: Langstroth, top bar, Warhay, flow hive, Slovenian. I want to show you some really quick pictures of all of those so you understand if you're thinking of keeping bees, what you may or may not want to use. Langstroth hive was developed in 1858 by Dr. Langstroth. It's a vertical modular beehive. So those frames are interchangeable. They can be easily moved, and they use what they call bee space. It leaves 3/8 of an inch space in between each frame. So the bees have plenty of room to move, but not enough room to build more comb in between. A top bar is a single story frameless beehive, and the comb hangs from removable bars. They don't winter very well in New Hampshire. A Warhay hive is probably the closest thing to the hollow of a tree. Those slats that they put in that the bees build down on, they draw their comb out. The only problem with a Warhay hive is because it's such free comb, not framed at all, is that when you need to add a box, you need to lift all of the boxes and add the box on the bottom. So it's like a 3-person job, but it's a beautiful hive. A flow hive, we have one of these normally up at the Rocks Estate. We use it for educational purposes. Basically, you're managing your brood frame, your brood box exactly the way you would a Langstroth. The only difference is that you're not disturbing the bees when you want to extract honey. The top right shows one of the flow frames totally closed up, and the bottom left shows it totally open, and you can see that it breaks that seal on the comb, and the honey will drip down to the bottom and come out. So you're not disturbing the bees at all. An Ajay hive, Slovenian hive, those are usually built into bee houses or sheds or barns, and you work them from the back. The frames slide in and out instead of being lifted. So you can get to it, be protected by the elements. You can have it portable if you want to move it to a different area of your property. These are brand new. These are Apimate insulated hives. They're becoming very popular. It's like the next generation of Langstroth hives. They are totally insulated. They never need painting. They're waterproof, termite proof. They have every bell and whistle on them that you may ever need. They have a pollen collector. They have a mouse guard. So they have it all. They all clip together. So if a bear happened to come by, it may knock it over, but it's not going to get it apart. Some people have taken Langstroth hives and put them on end, and those you also work from the back. They call them verticomb hives. And these are outlawed, but I wanted to show it to you. These are the original skep hives. There are many tribes in Africa, in South America, that still use these skep hives. These are a few of the tools that you're going to need: smoke or brush. You're going to need a hive tool for prying your frames up. You're going to need a stand to put your hive on. before we have the pallet system that we have now, we use cement blocks, and that works just as well. You need a suit, veil, and gloves. You can use a jacket, veil, and gloves if you'd like. If you use nothing at all, you're going to need at least a veil. You want to protect your face. This is what a typical commercial bee yard might look like. Just to go over real quick, bees can forage up to 5 miles. You need to know if you can lift at least 25 pounds. If you can't lift at least 25 pounds, you may want to go with one of those other types of hives. Can you tend to your hives year round? They say, oh, but the bees sleep in the winter. No, they don't. They're alive all winter. Their main job through the winter is to cluster around the queen and keep her at least 50 degrees. And once she starts laying after our winter solstice, yes, our winter solstice in December, that's when the queen starts laying after that. That's when our days start getting longer. Their calendar goes based on our amount of sunlight. It does not go on our calendar year. So you need to know that that's why we have to leave a lot of stores. All of our hives, we leave at least 100 pounds of honey on each of them. If we don't, we make sure that they're supplemented. We want to make sure that they have pollen in there, because once that queen starts laying, they need that pollen. They need that protein source to feed that larva. If they don't have it, they will cull out that larva. It'll die. I also want to talk about why bees are in trouble. They are leaving at alarming rates. The solution to pollinator health is not an easy one. Pesticides are weakening their immune system, leaving them more apt to get parasites and pathogens. The Varroa destructor mite arrived in North America in 1987. And they are a precursor to your hive collapsing. They will come into your hive. They will suck the fat bodies out of your bees. They will weaken them and leave them open to lots of diseases. They're thinking this probably had something to do with the colony collapse disorder, but it's not a total answer to the colony collapse disorder. They can get small hive beetles, wax moths, different types of foul brood. European foul brood can be handled by antibiotics. American foul brood carry spores that remain up to 80 years afterwards, and there's really nothing we can do but burn that hive. That includes bees and all your woodenware, and a lot of times even your suit and your gloves. Everything will get burned. It is sad, but it is a disease that's being spread by packages being brought up from other areas of the country. So New Hampshire beekeepers started a queen breeding program where they sent 6 of us to Cornell to learn how to commercially create queens that are good in our New England weather. And this will help eliminate a lot of these diseases. There's stone brood, sac brood, chalk brood. They're all fungal diseases. Nosema is common. It causes dysentery. Most of that is treatable. Bears, critters, hornets, yellow jackets, mice, skunks, raccoons, possum, and even toads. And we've got some birds that love to grab our queens. Our dragonflies like to grab our bees. And humans, the handling of boxes, taking too much honey can also make a big difference. Their healthy food sources are disappearing with pollinator deserts. So you can help by planting more pollinator gardens. People are moving the honeybees around commercially, and that narrows their genetic diversity. And that also spreads, like I talked previously, the diseases and the parasites. Habitat loss, acute and chronic pesticide poisoning. And I talk about this in a couple of different other talks. If you have a neighbor that sprays once a year, ask them to connect with you and let you know the day before so you can close your bees up that night when they're all in the hive. And that will keep them healthy. That'll take care of them not going to those blossoms while that product is still wet, and then bringing it back to the hive. That all takes a toll. So if you have a bees that continually bring pesticides back to the hive, it's going to collapse that hive pretty quickly. Let's see here. How can I help? Herbicides and pesticides, they do have a use when they're used appropriately. And I know you as farmers and gardeners understand that. But what you can do is contact your electrical supplier and your town, because towns spray also. A lot of them spray for mosquitoes. If they're spraying for mosquitoes, it's going to kill your bees. So ask to be put on the notification list prior to any spraying application. This way you can screen those hives up and make sure that your bees are going to be safe. You can plant more pollinator types of plants in your backyards, community workspaces. If you have room, plant more fruit trees. They're excellent sources of food for the pollinators. And if you don't have a farm and you work on your balcony, your apartment balcony, even balcony gardens and hanging baskets can help bees, and it can also help your production on your little island. If you have a lawn, stop mowing it. You'll be surprised what flowers drop in over time. It's really important for us to remember that. I have a couple of handouts that I'm going to send to Laura that she may want to send out when she sends out the link to this program on where to get non-GMO seeds, where to, what types of plants you can plant for different times of the year. So we're always looking for things that are real early in the season and real late in the season. Pussy willows, dandelions, crocuses are great really early in the season for our bees to get that first source of protein after being in the hive all winter. And then there's the late items, asters, sunflowers. The American sunflowers are great. They have a sterol in them that will plump up your bees and make them good and hardy for the winter. So we've got a great list, some resources that we'll send to Laura to get out to you that will help you. You can also, if you've got the room, sow some clover, and it can even be mowed at a higher setting. Leave a patch of bare soil. Many of our solitary ground nest bees like that, and they love the dirty water. Let your dandelions live. You can mow your lawn 2 weeks later. It won't hurt them. You can grow your own food. Support smaller local organic farms. Organic farms, we support higher biodiversity and better bee health. If you love honey, buy it from local beekeepers who care about their bees. Provide homes for the native bees. You can put a couple of bee blocks up for the mason bees. You can put some wood cavity nestings up for the solitary bees, the mining, the sweat bees. Leave a source of damp soil, or offer a shallow dish of water with some pebbles in it for the summer because they get thirsty too. And support current bills and other pollinator initiatives. Spread the word to those around you. And ultimately, the last thing to remember is that the bees are our canaries in the coal mine, telling us that there's something wrong, profoundly wrong, with the way that we're treating our earth. So we pay attention to what's happening around us. Are there questions?
Yes, we have quite a few questions.
Okay, we'll stop the share.
Okay, all right. So there are two questions about the queen.
Okay.
One, what happens to the queen in the winter? And then how do you provide winter pollen for the queen to begin laying after the solstice?
Okay, both are great questions. Thank you for asking. The queen is in the center of the cluster. She is kept until she starts laying. She is kept at 50 degrees. They fan, they cluster. It's like the penguins, you know, the outside of the cluster flexes their stomach muscles and it keeps the center of the cluster warm. That's basically what our honeybees do inside the hive. And they move throughout the hive where the pollen and the honey is in order to have that resource. We always provide that resource plus extra resources for them. We never know when we're going to get a real cold snap, and that they're going to need that extra. Once she starts laying, a portion of those bees are going to move to where she has started to lay because they have to keep that larva, that brood at 95 degrees. And I say this jokingly, 95 degrees, but it's 20 below outside. How do they do that? Trust, they do that. That little organism does it. We have our breeder queens, those colonies, inside a winter room that we climate control. We keep it at 40 degrees for the entire winter. We change the air. And the reason we have to keep it at 40 degrees is because with them being inside, they would make it too warm. That heat from the hive would come out and make that room too warm. So we want to keep them in a cluster that is a good temperature for them. I've gone into that winter bee room when it's been 15 below, and without it even being vented, they already had it at 45 degrees. So that's a big difference with the bees keeping a room warm. And that had 18 hives in it at the time. So they're great heat producers. Maybe we can garner some of that.
Great, thank you. Let's see, so the propolis, royal jelly bee venom, how do we harvest that sustainably so the hive still has what it needs to survive? And do we do that? And how do consumers know if product containing bee stuff was harvested sustainably?
Well, first of all, we have to educate our market. Is really, really important. It has to do with your marketing. So however you market your farm or your garden stand, you want to make sure and educate your customers. To sustainably produce that, we can add propolis traps on hives. They go on the top of the hive. We do that not on all of our hives, but we do it on our Russian bees because they are incredible propolis collectors. And that way we know they're going to have enough propolis for themselves and enough that we want. You can also scrape any extra propolis off early in the season. I do not recommend that you scrape any propolis off from August, the end of August on, till you close them up for the winter. Royal jelly, we harvest that. I mean, there's so many ways that you can do it, but what we do is we save our old queen cells. Once we notice, if we go into a hive and we see that there's queen cells in there, we'll watch it. We will let the first one hatch, and then we'll go back in and we will harvest those other queen cells because those queens are going to die anyway. The first hatched queen is going to kill them off. So we harvest the rest of those and harvest the royal jelly out of it. And what was the other one? Bee venom. Bee venom. You take a bee with a set of forceps and you place it on your hand or wherever you want to sting, and you sting yourself. We've got a great book here from Pat Wagner that was written by Pat Wagner. She is now deceased, that has charts, shows you all over your body and where you would sting for what. We were fortunate enough that her husband gave us permission to go to her publisher and have the books reprinted. So it's really important. If somebody wants to do apitherapy, they can certainly contact me directly and I can steer them in the right direction. We've got resources here. We're also fortunate enough that we have a great apitherapist living amongst us here in New England. We have Rhea Carlson, and she lives in Bradford, Vermont, and she is always willing to answer anybody's questions about apitherapy.
Great, thank you. There are two questions about plastics, and I guess they're pretty similar. First one is, any concerns with using plastics in hives? And then someone saw a video of a Russian man keeping bees in a large plastic bottle, no-touch hives. And he builds onto each module and simply cuts off the last one for harvest when the bees have moved on. Do you have any concerns about that?
I would have concerns about keeping bees in a plastic bottle. You have to understand that when you have your brood box, it's similar to the hollow of a tree, and the bees use that shape, and there's air in and air out. So even when I go to smoke the front of a hive, if I'm going to work in it, if I smoke it and the smoke immediately comes out of the hive, I know I'm on the exhaust side. So I will smoke the other side of the hive, the other end of the entrance. And that makes a difference. And if you have something in a bottle, it's going to create that vacuum. You're not going to have that airflow that's really important to the health of our bees. There's carbon dioxide that they've got to exhaust out of there. So I would have a problem with that.
Okay, and then just using plastics in hives in general, is that concern?
I don't use plastic in all of my hives. It's called Right Cell Foundation. It is a BPA-free plastic. It is heavily coated with wax to give them a head start on building up. If you are buying wax, I would be very careful where I bought it from to know that that source is organic, because like I mentioned previously, wax can hold whatever items they're bringing into the hive, and that can include pesticides, etc., pathogens. So it's really important for you to know where you're getting that wax. I use a black Right Cell Foundation in my brood box because I'm 67 years old and I can see the eggs much better on a black background than a yellow one. It's so much easier. I see the ones that are beekeepers here kind of chuckling because they know exactly what I'm talking about. There is Right Cell Foundation. It doesn't make a difference what color it is. In my honey supers, the ones that I'm going to extract, and that is because it holds its shape. I'm not worried about blowing out the foundation when I am spinning those frames to extract wax. I do have hives that are all those honey supers are plastic free because I do it for comb foundation, just to comb honey. So it's a matter of preference too. If you want to do all of yours in free foundation, then go ahead. But just be careful if you're going to extract it.
Okay, great, thank you. Why are I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but why are the skep hives outlawed?
because there was no way to check for diseases.
Okay.
The FDA banned them. I guess you could have it, but you can't sell any of that honey.
Thank you. Okay, someone lost a hive to mites and they're wondering how they can sterilize the Langstrom hive before getting new bees.
You don't have to worry about getting rid of the mites because they will not be. Did you just lose? See, I need to know more. I have to ask a lot more questions.
Okay.
Did they just lose it? Did they lose it last year? So it's going to depend on what their situation is. And if they want to contact me directly, I can put my beginning number up there. They can call me directly and I'd be more than happy to talk to them and speak to them about it. And Joan knows that I will.
Okay, great. And I think your contact information is also in the program guide, so
Okay,
people
great.
should
All
find
right.
it there also. Okay, so let's see, this person's trying to understand how their neighbor can keep a beehive while also having their lawn chemically treated at the same time. She would have thought that they would know better and not allow this, but it's also not registered with the state of New Jersey, I guess.
I know in the state of New Jersey, they require registration.
Okay.
There's a cat going by the door where the dogs are. The survival of the fittest here.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. They're not beekeepers, they're bee-havers.
Okay.
That's my answer, is that they're bee-havers and not beekeepers. Because if they truly cared about the bees, they would not be spraying their lawn.
Right. Makes sense. Okay. I guess you said that you don't eat bananas from March to October. Why is that?
Okay, I just had to tell her that was enough barking. No. Okay, question about the bananas.
Yes. Why do you not eat them at a certain time of year?
Because it's like when you eat a lot of garlic, because I would eat a banana every single morning. If you eat a lot of garlic, you sweat garlic. When you eat a lot of bananas, you sweat bananas. And the banana smell is the same as the alarm pheromone in a hive. It's that same pheromone. So I do not want to open a hive and have them immediately say, alarm. I want them to be nice and calm.
Great. Okay, more information about this hive that was lost. Was a Rhode Island swarm that was captured in June, fed in August, September, and October, and died in December.
Okay, what was your mite count? Because when a swarm leaves a hive like that, heavy mite count, that's the reason why then. That is the reason why they didn't live, because their fat bodies were already destroyed. So they just, like I said, they're either going to live 4 to 6 months or 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. So you got the short end. Can one capture wild swarms? Any concerns? Absolutely, you can. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's great. Dr. Tom Seeley from Cornell University has written a book on beelining. It's called, the old farmers used to call it beelining, and they would follow the bees and how to do it. And you can capture wild swarms very easily by beelining. You can also capture one of your own swarms. We drum them. Oh, his name is Tom Seeley, Seeley. We call it drumming. You can basically take your hive tool and drum it on the side of a metal can, galvanized pail, and the bees will think that it's thunder. And I've literally seen hives take off to swarm. I've started drumming immediately. And I've seen them go back right into the hive because they think there's going to be a thunderstorm.
Mm.
And at that point, I will go, I'll wait up maybe 2 or 3 hours. I will go back into the hive, that hive. I will open it up. I will remove the queen and half of the bees. And I will place them in a new home. The foragers, a lot of the foragers will go back to the original hive, but they may stay with the queen if they were foragers that were going to go with her to begin with. So that way I'm doing my split. If they're swarming, there's already a capped queen cell in the hive. They don't swarm unless there's capped queen cells. So I don't have to worry about that. I don't take any capped queen cells with me. I just take the queen and some frames that don't have queen cells on them, and I leave those bees on them.
Okay. Great. Does putting rhubarb leaves in the hive help to reduce the mite population?
No, it gives them more work to clean it out of the hive.
Okay.
There is a chemical compound, oxalic acid, that is found in rhubarb leaves. And it's also found in spinach. It's also found in hops. You can grow those items, but the best thing you can do is let them go to seed. And they will get more from it going to seed from that blossom than they will from the leaves. At
Great.
what point do you split hives? We split our hives in May. Anything that wintered over is split in May because they want to do it anyway. They're going to do it every year, so I'd rather do it for them.
Is there a certain time to look out, like weather-wise, or?
I don't split
Certain
until
week?
I see the queen laying drone brood, because I have to know that the new queens are going to have drones to mate with.
Okay. Great. I saw one question that we didn't cover, which is where can we get more information about apitherapy?
You can go to the American Apitherapy Association. You can, we've got the book that I talked about. How well are you willing to be? That's on our webpage. I also have Charles Mraz's book that's on our webpage. So that can be purchased there too. And that has some great information. He's like the godfather. He's deceased now, but he's the godfather of apitherapy. He's amazing. He was amazing.
Great, thank you. And I think that we are out of time for questions, so we're gonna wrap up here. See, thank you, Janice, for your time and for sharing with us today. And thank you everyone for being here. Our next session is the annual meeting at noon. I will pop the links in the chat here for the things I'm going to cover just now. So at noon, we have our annual meeting, a raffle, annual awards. So please join us for that. And please check out our virtual exhibitor fair featuring 17 different exhibitors, including our conference bookstore hosted by Main Street Bookends. When you order books through Main Street Bookends and include NOFA New Hampshire in the comments, 20% of the proceeds will be donated back to NOFA New Hampshire.
Nice.
And also please mark your calendars for our upcoming programs. On February 17th, we have NOFA New Hampshire's Farm Bill listening session. We have our Feeding the Family Organic Gardening series with 6 sessions from February 22nd to May 3rd. And then our bulk order program, you can save on farming and gardening supplies with that. The order deadline is February 28th with pickup on March 19th and 20th in Andover, New Hampshire, Ware, and Rochester. And that's it. Thank you for joining us.